technical constraints, so it was not happened. So really very sorry for that. So once again, I welcome you to the 5-day workshop or webinar on real-time industrial solutions and analysis in analog circuit domain. So my name is Dr. N. Baladastagiri. So I've been associated with Ekalavya Group of Technologies for quite some time now. Uh, so coming to the things which I have discussed in the morning, the heart disease. So mostly in the world, the major cause of death is the heart strokes or heart diseases, and India has becoming a hub for the heart attacks. Okay, so in order to overcome the heart attacks, we have to make the patient to the hospital at the golden hour. So if we present the patient to the hospital at the golden hour, so there is a chance of survival. So in order to make the patient survive from the heart strokes, so there are many equipments. So these equipments are related to the electronics. So these are known, so this belongs to a field of medical electronics. So now let us see here. So it is the generation of ECG signal. So where there is a node known as SCA node. So SCA node means sino RTL node. So it is the natural pacemaker of the heart. So normally, due to the chemical imbalances in the human heart, that is the muscle of the heart, so electrical pulses will be generated. These electrical pulses will be transferred, or this will be traveled around the heart to generate the ECG signals. So these ECG signals plays the crucial role. So first, from the SCA node, the chemical imbalances in the heart muscle will generate the electrical pulses, and these electrical pulses so travel from the right auricle to right ventricle to left ventricle, left ventricle to left auricle. So like this, so ECG signal will be generated within the heart. So now, why we are going for this ECG related issue means, so nowadays, so the word IC has become the acronym for everyone. So the people who doesn't know the electronics background also, they will be talking about the IC, integrated circuit, so which has become a household acronym. So in order to have the ICs for the medical field, there are several complications. So based on the different applications, we have selected the ECG applications for your prescription. So first one is the arrhythmias. So arrhythmias are the cardiac problems. So arrhythmias means irregular heartbeat. So normally the person's heartbeat beats from 60 to 100 minutes. Sorry, for 60 to 100 beats in a minute. So the arrhythmias means where the heart beats become abnormal. So these heartbeats may increase or decrease or irregular, so depending upon the patient condition. So if the heartbeat is greater than 100 beats per minute, so it is called as increased heartbeat, or it is called as tachycardia. If the heart beats less than 60 beats per minute, so it is called as bradycardia or decreased heartbeat. So whenever the person heart beat is in bradycardia condition, so the required amount of blood will not be supplied to the all parts of the human body. So due to this, so the blood supply to the brain will be decreased. So due to this, the person may suffer from the lightheadedness, fainting, and ultimately to the death. So if you want to overcome this, so we have to use the medical electronics. So you can see here two figures here. The first one is pacemaker implementation, and second one is the overview of the pacemaker here. So in order to treat the bradycardia condition, a pacemaker is inserted into the human body. The collarbone, that is beside the lungs. So an electrode is inserted into the human heart. So this electrode will calculate the number of beats per minute, and it will give that information to the electronic circuit that is present in the pacemaker. So this electronic circuit makes sure that if the number of beats are less than 60 per minute means, so an electrical pulse is injected into the heart so that the heart will boost its heart rate. For treating the tachycardia, an implantable cardio defibrillator is used. So this tracheo defibrillator will decrease the heart rate whenever the heart is beating too fast. So these implantable cardio defibrillator and also the pacemakers are active implantable devices. So which we have discussed in the morning. So active implantable devices means so the devices which can be implanted into the human body. Okay. So there are two types of implantable devices as we have discussed in the morning. So they are the active implantable medical devices and the passive implantable medical devices. So active implantable medical devices means which requires the power supply. So passive implantable medical device means which doesn't require the power supply.
Sir,
Makers
Bala sir,
curvilinear implants for the passive implantable devices the bones which
Bala
are
sir.
kept in the these are examples for the passive implantable devices. So these active implantable devices or passive implantable devices are kept in the human body through a surgical procedure. Now if you see these active implantable medical devices, so it works with the help of a battery. So a tiny battery will also be implemented into the human heart. Once these
Bala
pacemakers
sir.
are implemented in the human body, so they have to work for 6 to 7 years. If they are, if the battery is drained, again the battery has to be replaced in the pacemaker by undergoing the surgery. If the patient goes for surgery for multiple times, it will be a huge problem for the patient. So it may lead to the death of the patient. So in order to overcome that, what we have to do is that we have to make sure that we have to increase the battery life. So in order to increase the battery life of these pacemakers, what we have to do is that, so we have to reduce the power consumption. We have to reduce the power consumption of the pacemaker. So in order to reduce the power consumption of the pacemaker, so we have to make sure that PPT not
Bala
coming,
sir.
sir. Hello,
Your PPT is not visible, sir.
not visible. ఇప్పుడు
Yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir. ఒకసారి స్క్రీన్
హలో,
షేర్ చేయండి. ఒకసారి స్క్రీన్ షేర్ చేయండి, సార్.
ఓకే ఓకే.
సంబంధం చేసేటప్పుడు వాళ్ళ స్క్రీన్ షేర్ చేస్తారు సార్, అందువల్ల ప్రాబ్లం వచ్చింది అలా.
ఇప్పుడు కనిపిస్తుందా సురేష్? హలో.
కనిపిస్తుంది సార్, కనిపిస్తుంది సార్.
Okay. So in order to increase the battery life of the pacemaker, so we have to make sure that the power consumed by the pacemaker should be very very less. So if you consider any electronic device nowadays, so this electronic device is mainly made up of two things. So one is analog circuitry and as well as the digital circuitry. So analog circuitry means so circuitry which deals with the continuous time signals. So example is the things which we will speak. So whatever you speak, this will not be in the same amplitude. That is the voltage. The voltage will be varying. So digital circuitry means the circuit which deals with either zero or one. Okay, so why we are going for the analog circuitry, why we are going for the digital circuitry? So we are going for the digital circuitry because in order to reduce the power consumption and in order to reduce the area. Okay, so analog power consumption analog circuitry, why we are going means, so naturally occurring signals are analog signals. So that means we cannot directly acquire the analog signals into a digital part. So we have to acquire it as it is. They are available in nature. Then we have to convert into the digital domain. Again, we have to process in the digital domain. So that is the two reasons why we are going for the usage of analog as well as digital circuits. So now if you see here, this is the background. Since we have taken the application as biomedical here, so these are the biopotential signals. So biopotential signals means the signals, the biosignals which are available in our human bodies. The ECG signals means electrocardiogram signals. So these are the cardiac signals, and EEG means electroencephalogram. These are the neural signals, that is the signals from the brain, and EOG, electrocardiogram signals. So these are the nerve signals. Okay, so these are the different types of biopotential signals that are available in the human body. The frequency of ECG signal is around 0 to 150 Hz. The voltage of the ECG signal will be from 0 to 10 millivolts. Similarly, the voltage of the brain signals, so neural signals, will be around 0 to 100 microvolts to 1 millivolt, and the frequency will be around 0 to 100 Hz. Similarly, the nerves signal frequency will be 0 to 10 Hz, and the voltage will be ranging from 0 to 100 microvolts. So it is very very difficult. In order to acquire these signals, a lot of effort has to be kept. There will be a number of design issues and design challenges in order to acquire these signals. It is not an easy task in order to acquire the signals of this frequency and signals of this voltage. Okay, whenever I think most of you might have seen the ECG recording for your parents or for your grandparents, like that. So whenever we are recording a ECG signal, so normally three types of noises will be there. So noise means unwanted signal. So this unwanted signal will change the voltage of the signal what you are recording. Okay, so whenever we are recording the ECG signals or any biomedical signal, so there are three types of noises. The first type of noise is due to the human. Actually, the ECG signal, in order to acquire that, electrodes will be kept near the heart. So due to the skin and the electrode interface, a noise will be occurred. And second thing is that, so due to the cables, due to the length of the cables also, so a type of noise will be occurred. And the third is will be due to the internal circuitry problems. So these are the three types of noises that are normally occurred in the ECG recording. So you can imagine here, if the ECG signal is 100 microvolts. Okay, 100 microvolts means the voltage is very 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 less, and due to this noise, and if due to the noise, if this voltage is altered means, you can imagine you cannot get the exact voltage. If you are not detecting the exact voltage from the human heart, your ECG will not work. If a patient is suffering from the heart stroke and if you are not recording the ECG properly means, there will be a lot of problem and there will be a life threatening to the patient. So that means you can imagine what are the challenges in the analog design. So it is not very easy, the analog design when compared with the digital. So digital means directly either zeros or ones. So most of you might have studied the STLD, that is the digital design or STLD. So decode logic gates, decoders or encoders where the inputs will be zeros and outputs will be ones. So apart from zeros and ones, no other input will be there, no other output will be there. But it is not in the case of the analog signals. A lot of constraints will be there, a lot of challenges will be there. So now let us see that. So this is the proposed block diagram for any biomedical signal acquisition. So since I am going for the ECG here, so the ECG from the human heart will be acquired by the instrumentation amplifier. So sometimes this is referred to as instrumentation amplifier. Sometimes this is referred to as the LNA, that is the low noise amplifier. Okay, so this instrumentation amplifier or LNA is used to acquire the biopotential signal from the human heart. That biopotential signal can be cardiac signal or neural signal or brain signal, anything, and followed by a ADC. So ADC means analog to digital converter. So why we are converting from analog to digital means, in order to reduce the power consumption, in order to reduce the area, so we are going for the analog to digital converter. So on the 6th day, what we will do is that, so we will try to define a ECG signal. So that means we will define an instrumentation amplifier. So we will make sure that the instrumentation amplifier can acquire the signal in between 0 to 100 Hz frequency. So by acquiring the signal which is having to 0 to 100 frequency, now we will convert that signal into the digital. So we will do it practically on the day 6. Okay, so where we can see it. Okay, so after converting into the digital part, so the remaining processing will be done by the digital signal processing. Okay, so this is how a biomedical implantable device will be operated. So now if you see here, this is the power consumption of various blocks in the biomedical biomedical ICs here. So the most of the power is consumed by the analog front end. So in order to increase the battery life here, so we have to make sure that the power consumed by the analog front end will be reduced. So that means, so the designing also should be at a point such that the power consumption of the analog front end should be reduced. So now let us see the basics of an integrated circuit. So now first, what is an integrated circuit, users of an integrated circuit, and why we have to use an integrated circuit made by interconnecting the discrete components. So as we discussed, the integrated circuit means it is a miniature low-cost electronic circuit consisting of active and passive components, so that are irreversibly joined together on a single crystal chip of silicon. Okay, so chip of silicon or silicon wafer. So how this silicon wafer is prepared means, a raw sand, a clear raw sand is taken, and this raw sand is heated up to 1100 degrees centigrade in a quartz crystal. So after that, this liquid sand will be made as a circular plates. After that, the circular plates will be surface of the circular plates will be made clear like a mirror. Okay, so on that silicon wafers, so these transistors are fabricated. Okay, so why we have to use ICs? So why we have to use ICs means, the main thing is that, so in order to overcome the issues of power consumption, in order to achieve the high speed, and in order to achieve the low area. So if you want to use any IC in any field, that may be a commercial field or medical field or aerospace or anything, so we have to make sure that the IC should achieve these three things. The IC should consume low power, the IC should work at a higher speed, at higher operating speed, and third one is that the IC should be having very low area. So for example, in your lab, if you see, so whenever we are doing the lab, what we will do, so we will be taking a lot of discrete components, so resistors, capacitors, in transistors, everything, and we will be connecting into that wires. So it will be very clumsy. So imagine for a shorter circuit only, number of wires will be connected will be more, and the number of components are 5 means, so then the number of wires also will increase, and it looks very clumsy. Okay, suppose if it is an IC means a single IC, just directly we will use it in the required circuitry, and we will give the inputs and we will give the outputs. So imagine how neat will be there if you are using the IC. And the designing of IC is not a simple task. So a lot of issues will be there in the designing of the IC. So these are the application areas where an IC is used. So in the field of communication, in the field of control systems, instrumentation, computers, electronics, so you cannot imagine the area where an IC is not used. So right from the children's toys to the aerospace applications, right from the children's toys to the medical applications, in every electronic device, so we are using the IC. So nowadays, we are not in the field of IC, not in the area of integrated circuits. Nowadays, we are using the SOS, that is the system on chip. So in the system on chip, it consists of different number of transistors in combination with the microprocessor or microcontroller. So we are in the age of SOC now. So these are the advantages of the IC here. So small size, low cost, less weight, low supply voltages. So you can see here low supply voltages. So whenever we are connecting your circuit with the discrete components. For example, suppose if you want to design some circuit, we have to give 12 volts like that if you are using the discrete components. But whenever the same circuit is implemented in terms of the IC, the power consumption will not be greater than 5 volts. A lot of power supply will also be saved. So low power consumption, so highly reliable. So highly reliable means, so since we are not using many connecting wires externally, so there will be no noise from the external sources. So that means the output will be more reliable and also it will be more fast. So now let us see the structure of IC here. So this is the process how an IC is prepared. So the first one is system specifications. So whenever we have to prepare an IC, so we have to make sure that, so starting of the process, we have to write on the piece of the paper the system specifications. For example, I have to design a adder. I have to design a 2-bit adder. So that means 2-bit adder, a digital 2-bit adder for suppose. So that means I have to add 2 numbers. Okay. So for this purpose, I want to design an IC. So now I have to take a piece of paper and I have to write the specifications. Okay. So adder. So what is the internal circuit of the adder? So how many bits it has to add? Okay, like this I have to write the specifications. Okay, so the next one is architectural design. So in the designing, there are 3 types of designing normally. So in the field of IC, the 3 types of designings, they are called as black box designing, white box designing, and gray box designing. Okay. So white box designing means whenever a designer is designing a circuit, he will show us what are the components he is using internally in the circuit. So everyone can see it. Okay. So everyone can see what are the components that are used internally in the given circuit. So that is called as white box designing. So black box designing means, so the designer will not allow the outside person to see what is there internally inside the electronic design. So he will give the inputs, he will give the outputs, he will give the relation between the input and output. Okay. So for example, if you want to add two numbers normally, so y is equal to a plus b. So a and b will be the input side and y will be the output side. The relation is y is equal to a plus b. So just we know this relation, but internally what else the circuit he has used to implement that will not be known to the outside person. So this is called as black box designing. So gray box designing means, so some part of the designing will be known to the outsiders and some other part will not be known. So this is called as gray box designing. The next one is functional design and logic design. So functional design means we have to, once the design is done, so we have to verify the functionality of the given circuit. For example, y is equal to a plus b I have taken. So a I have given 2 and b I have given 3. It should be 5. Okay. So if a is 2 and b is 3, output should be 5. If it is 5, then we can say that the circuit whatever we have designed is correct. Otherwise, the circuit, if 2 plus 3 is getting 6 means, even though addition is done, but I am not getting the correct output here. So if 2 plus 3 is equal to 5.1 means, so addition is, the circuit is doing the addition, but I am getting the wrong output. So that means functionally it is not correct. So that comes under the functional design. So once the functionality is done, the next one is, in terms of analog circuit means we have to go for circuit design. So next one is physical design. So physical design means, for example, what will be done is that whatever the circuit we have designed, that will be converted into the layout. Layout means geometrical representation of our circuit. So in the circuit, in the before this step in architectural design, just we will draw the circuit. Okay, so added circuit. But if you want to design the IC means, we have to have the geometrical representation of our circuit. This is called as layout. This comes under the physical design. So after that, physical verification. So in the physical verification, we have to make sure that, so with respect to the technology, so which the DRC rules, LVS rules are correct or not. Then after the physical verification, we will get the file known as GDS2. So GDS2 means graphical data stream interchange information. So in the manufacturing of an IC, up to this process, so up to physical verification process, we have to use the different EDA tools. That is the electronic design automation tools. Okay. So normally people will think means IC is the hardware job. So IC is not a hardware job. So up to the point of physical verification, all the process should be done on the softwares only. So we have to take a system, there will be different softwares, and in these softwares, the entire process will be done. So after the physical verification steps, we get a file known as GDS2, and this GDS2 will be some, in terms of some KB, it is a text file in terms of some KB. This text file will be sent to the foundries. Okay. So for the fabrication. So foundry means which will fabricate your IC. That means which will manufacture your IC. So there is a long process again for the fabrication of an IC. So once the IC is fabricated, so this IC will be packed. Normally you have seen the ICs. So normally the ICs which you have seen in your labs will be of black color or like a white tin color. So these are the packages. So if you broke that package, so again the ICs will be like a glass. So you can see the ICs will be like a glass. So after the packaging and the testing, so again after packaging the IC, we have to test whether the IC is working perfectly or not. So this can be done by using the testing equipments, and that chip is released into the market. Now let me tell you a small question. This is very, very important for the industry point of view. Okay. Normally the people will be saying that the technology is increasing day by day. So I mean to ask you, what is meant by increase in the technology? Okay. So increase in the technology means nothing but decrease in the size of your transistor. Okay. So if you are constructing any circuit, means the circuit is constructed in terms of transistors. Okay, so that transistor may be a BJT, that is the bipolar junction transistor, that is PNP or NPN transistors, then followed by the CMOS, okay, complementary metal oxide semiconductor transistors. So nowadays we are using the FinFET technology, FinFET transistors. Okay, so the size of the transistor implies the technology what we are using. Okay, so size of the transistor means nothing but the channel length. So again, I am not going internal again into the construction of your transistor. So channel length of the transistor is nothing but the size of the transistor. The size of the transistor is nothing but the technology what you are using. For example, if you see your mobile, so on that mobile the specifications will be there. It is done in 18 nanometer technology. So 18 nanometer technology means if an electronic device is manufactured in 18 nanometer technology means it is mean that the channel length of the transistor what the in your design is 18 nanometer. Okay, so the channel length means in case of your CMOS transistor, the space between your drain and source is nothing but the channel length. Okay, the channel between the drain and source, so this is called as channel length. It is nothing but the technology. So in the 18 nanometer technology means the channel length is 18 nanometer. So you have to make sure this. So most of the people will say wrong in the interviews regarding this. And in the physical design, I have told you, whenever you are drawing a circuit, for example, you take added circuit. If you take added circuit means number of transistors will be used in the added circuit. For example, not going into the adder. So I think all of you might have know about the logic gates, AND gate, OR gate, XOR gate. Suppose if I want to design an NAND gate IC. Okay, so if I want to design a 2-bit NAND gate IC, so I have to implement that NAND gate in terms of the transistors. So there will be 4 transistors for your 2 input NAND gate. Okay, so these 4 transistors, whenever we are implementing this, so in the physical design, so there will be some rules. Okay, so that we have to implement with respect to that rules. For example, the VDD and ground what you are giving, that is a VDD and ground power supply. So these power lines area length should be 3 lambda. Okay, where lambda is equal to f by 2 is nothing but the feature size, and again it is in depth. Normally there will be some rules. Okay, so in according to that rules we have to design the layout, so which is nothing but the physical design. Okay, so physical design means in short we can say that designing of our layout, where layout is the geometrical representation of your circuit. Okay, so in the physical verification there are 3 steps. The first step is DRC, the second step is LVS, and the third step is PEX. Okay, so DRC means design rule check. So for example, I am designing a circuit in 18 nanometer technology means there will be some rules, design rules, how to, what should be the length of the circuit, what should be the length of metal, VDD metal, what should be the length of ground metal, like this. So we have to follow all these rules. Okay, so in order to check whether the designer has followed all these rules and they are correct or not, in order to verify that, we are going for the DRC, design rule check. Okay, if the design rule check is wrong means we have not constructed your circuit as per the given technology. Okay, so next followed by LVS, layout versus schematic. So layout versus schematic. In the schematic already we have given the supply voltage and we have checked the functionality. So Y is equal to A plus B, we have checked the functionality. So in the layout we cannot give the power supply. So therefore we will compare the output of layout and output of schematic to check whether the functionality of the layout and the functionality of schematic are same or not. Once the layout, if the layout is correct, means the given design, so what you have done is functionally correct in terms of physical design. Okay, so next one is PEX, parasitic extraction. Suppose in a transistor, there will, if you are designing the transistor, there will be number of unwanted capacitance and unwanted resistances. These are known as parasitics. So due to these parasitics, what happens is that the function output behavior or the functionality of the circuit will be altered. So we should make sure that the functionality of the output will not be changed. So that means we have to remove the parasitics. That is called as parasitic extraction. Okay, so after that we get the GDS2 file, and this GDS2 file is sent to the foundries. So foundries means which will manufacture your IC. So normally why the China products are very less in cost means, so the Chinese have there is IC foundry known as TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Company. So due to this, the manufacturing cost is very less. If you want, for our Indians, if you want to design that in India, we don't have any proper manufacturing, commercial manufacturing, IC manufacturing unit. So if you want to send, you have to send it to the AMI, or if you have to send to the TSMC, to other countries. In India, we doesn't have the proper manufacturing unit. So that is the reason why in India, the manufacturing will not be happened for the, in terms of the electronic goods, but up to the designing part, the more amount of work is happened in the India. So there are a lot of jobs. Okay, so in the circuit design, physical verification. So as per the Intel statistics in the IC designing, that is mostly in the analog designing part. So 1,50,000 of jobs are vacant in India. Why these jobs are vacant is, so due to the lack of skill in the students. So there are, if you go to the Bangalore or Hyderabad nowadays, or Chennai, in the South India, there are number of VLSI companies, that is the IC companies. So where they will be giving the training. When you compared with the normal software people and the software industry and the IC industry, the initially the people who are working in the IC industry may get less salaries, but to the down to the line of some 4 to 5 years, so the salaries of the people working in the IC industries will be some around 4 to 5 times greater than the people working in the software. There are a lot of opportunities in the IC field. So the next one is classification of ICs. So mainly the ICs are classified into two types. One is digital IC and second one is linear IC. Digital ICs means, as I told you, the ICs so which deals with only zeros and ones. Here we are giving the inputs in terms of zeros and ones, and we are getting the outputs in terms of zeros and ones. So linear ICs, these are also analog ICs. So where we are giving the input in terms of continuous time signal, and we are getting the output in terms of continuous time signal. So these are the two types based on the functionality, and based on the construction, there are three types of ICs. So monolithic IC, thick and thin film IC, and hybrid circuits. Okay, so monolithic circuits means the ICs which are made from the single crystal. So again, there are two types of monolithic circuits here. So these are bipolar and unipolar. So bipolar means, so here the current conduction is done by using the both holes and electrons. So examples for this is PN junction isolation and dielectric isolation. For the unipolar, the current conduction is done by using either electrons or holes. So examples for this is MOSFET or ZFET. So this is the next one is chip size and complexity. So initially the transistor, so by using the germanium metal, the transistor was invented in the year 1947. Later based on the silicon, the transistor was developed from the 1955 to 1959. So next one is planar technology. So next we have implemented the planar technology. So in the planar technology means that the transistors are implemented on the same circuit. So that means they are implemented on the uh, same designing surface. So next one is ICs. The first ICs is known as SSI, that is small scale integration. Okay, from the SSI to ULSI. So these are the few generation of ICs. The first generation of ICs are known as SSI, that is the small scale integration. So developed in the year 1960. So in the SSI chip, there are 3 to 30 gates. Okay. So next generation of ICs is MSI, that is the medium scale integration. So in the medium scale integration, so the number of gates implemented on the IC are 30 to 300. So these sort of ICs were used in the years 1965 to 1970. So from 1970 to 1975, so LSI, that is the linear scale integration circuits, came into existence. The number of transistors on the ICs will be some 300 to 3000. So from 1975, so we have entered into an era of VLSI, so where more than 3000 gates are implemented on the single silicon chip. So nowadays, after that, we have gone for ULSI, that is the ultra large scale integration. Nowadays, we are calling it as GSI, gain scale integration, where billions and millions and billions of transistors are fabricated on the single silicon wafer. Okay, so but VLSI, ULSI, GSI, these all terms. So from the VLSI to the things that is up to GSI, so we refer the technology as VLSI technology. So you can see this. So examples. So SSI integration. The examples of SSI integration are integrated resistors, diodes, and BJTs. So in the MSI, it is the enhanced MOSFETs. LSI, so we have done it by using the MOSFETs. VLSI, the micro examples are 8-bit and 16-bit microprocessors, and ULSI Pentium processors. So why is designing digital ICs different today than it was before? So why? Because as I told you for a number of times, why it is different means, so it is different due to for the achieving of low power consumption simply. Okay, so will it change in the future means? Yeah. So as the technology progresses, so there will be a lot of things happening. Okay, so there is a law known as Moore's law. So based on this Moore's law, semiconductor industry, that is the IC industry, has been working. So the Moore's law states that for every 18 months, the number of transistors so on the chip will be doubled. For example, now there are some 10,000 transistors on the IC, means after 18 months, so there will be 180,000 transistors will be on the IC. That is known as the Moore's law. But this Moore's law also now has gone wrong, because the number of transistors has been increased some 100 times or 1000 times, I can say. So more number of transistors are implemented on a single silicon wafer. So why means the size of the transistor is being reduced. So that means the size of the transistor is reduced, means the technology is increased. So to say that nowadays Intel is working on 3 nanometer technology now by using the FinFET transistors. So by using the FinFET transistors, the Intel is working on the 3 nanometer technology. So that means the size of the transistors in that device will be 3 nanometers. Now you can imagine how will be the transistor. You cannot see with your naked eyes. Okay, so in a given area, so there will be some billions and trillions of transistors. Let me tell you, first during the early invention of ICs, as we have seen, so we have designed the ICs by using the bipolar junction transistor, that is by using the NPN and PNP transistors. So these NPN and PNP transistors so were very speed, but they also consume high power. So in order to overcome that, so what they have done is that, so they have went for CMOS technology. So CMOS technology means the transistors we are using in the circuits are complementary metal oxide semiconductors. So CMOS means combination of PMOS and NMOS, that is P channel MOSFET and N channel MOSFET. By combining the P channel MOSFET and N channel MOSFET, so we are getting the CMOS transistor. So this CMOS transistor consumes very low power, but it is very slow. Now, in order to meet the requirement of high speed, what they have done is that, so the designers have implemented the BiCMOS technology. So BiCMOS technology means combination of BJT plus CMOS. So they have used the NPN and PNP transistors in the area where, if in the same IC, in the area where we have to work with high speed, so at this area, so they have used the NPN and PNP transistors. So again, in order to achieve the low power other than the area, so CMOS transistors have been used. And moreover, let me tell you, as the size of the transistors has been reduced, so as the size of the transistors reduce, what happens? More and more number of transistors are fabricated on the are fabricated on the IC. For example, I have taken a IC of 1 square meter. So in the 1 square meter, for suppose I'm implementing that 1 square meter IC in 45 nanometer technology. Now what happens? Example, say some 1000 transistors are fabricated in the given area. Now what I am doing is that I am implementing in the same area with 18 nanometer. That means more number of transistors are fabricated on that given area. So in the 45 nanometer, some 1000 transistors will be fabricated. Now with 18 nanometer technology, the size of the transistor is reduced. So therefore, some 5000 or 6000 transistors will be fabricated. So the space between the transistors is reduced. So if the space between the transistors is reduced, and there is a problem with the supply voltage again, as the transistor that is the supply voltage means VDD, as the transistor size decreases, the supply voltage has to be decreases. At one particular point of time, what happens is that the requirements of the supply voltage are not meeting the technology constraints. So at 18 nanometer technology, so whatever the supply voltage we have to give is around some 0.6 to 0.8 so which will be very less when compared with the threshold voltage. So due to this, what happens? The CMOS transistor is not able to work properly at this. So as the transistor size is reduced, there will be a lot of issues. So the CMOS technology cannot overcome that issues, and for that, so we have went for FinFET technology. So this is about the change in the future. So now let us see some figures here. The first electronic computers in the 1946. So it is the first electronic computer. You can see the computer size is of a room. Now imagine, so we are just carrying our laptops in hand, and in the 1946, you can see this computer made with vacuum tubes. It is of a room size. Okay. And next one is the first transistor, so which was developed at Bell Labs in 1948. So it is the first BJT transistor that was developed at Bell Labs in the 1948. And that is the first integrated circuit developed by Jack Kilby from Texas Instruments. So in the year 1958. So you can see the picture of the integrated circuit here. And the next one is Intel 4004 microprocessor. So it is developed in the 1971. So which belongs to LSI, that is the linear scale integration. So where 100 transistors are fabricated. So in this microprocessor IC, 100 transistors are fabricated and works with the speed of 1 megahertz frequency. And the next one is Intel 8080 microprocessor. So this Intel 8080 microprocessor so belongs to a family of VLSI. So in this 4500 transistors are fabricated on the single silicon wafer. You can see here. So here 4040 as per Moore's law. So 4004 and 8080 microprocessors are working perfectly. So Moore's law means I have told you the number of transistors on the IC will be doubled for every 24 months. Okay, so based on this, the Moore's law is working perfectly. And the next one is Intel Pentium 4 microprocessor. So in the Intel Pentium 4 microprocessor in the year 2000, you can imagine 14 million transistors are fabricated on the single silicon wafer, and you can see the speed. So in the year 1971, the speed of the clock in the processor is 1 megahertz, but in the year 2000 from the Intel Pentium 4, so the speed of the clock is 1.5 gigahertz. Now you can imagine how much the speed of the clock has been increased, and moreover you can see so 1000 transistors to 4.2 million transistors. You can imagine how much. So these are the layout figures. Okay, so this is the internal circuit of your Intel Pentium 4 processor. This is how internally it looks. So after packaging, it will be look different. So it is the internal architecture of your Intel Pentium 4. So this, whatever the thing you are seeing, the photo which you are seeing on it is nothing but your layout. So up to this part, so up to this is the layout. So like this, your processor will be designed. That may be a mobile processor or that may be a computer processor. So the processor will be designed like this in the softwares, in the EDA tools. So the EDA tools for this are Cadence, Synopsys, and Mentor. So these are the EDA tools. So after designing the layout like this in the EDA tools, from this GDS2 file is generated. So up to this layout, some hundreds of people work. Some, you can say, some hundreds or thousands of people will work. So after this, a single text file will be sent it to the foundries. So it is the cross-section area of a chip. You can see here. So the chip, so it is an anonymous chip. So this chip consists of 5 layers. Okay. So what you think is that the layout means, I think most of you have seen the PCB. So for any electronic device, most of you people have seen the PCB. I think that is the printed circuit board. So the printed circuit board, you can see some scratches, green color lines, and the in between that there will be some connections. Okay, so you might have seen. So this is not a single layer. In the PCB also there are up to 63 layers in the PCB designing. So in the layout there will be up to 8 layers. So you can see here in this IC it is consists of 5 layers. Okay, so in the first layer 1, transistors you can see here, the transistors. So layer 2 also transistors. So layer 3 is power lines. So layer 4 are aluminum wires, and layer 5 again is silicon dioxide. So layer 5 again we are getting the like a transistor here. So gate, source, and drain. So this IC is made up of 5 layers. So in between this there will be the connectors. So these connectors will be connecting from one layer to another layer. So these are normally called as vias. So now, as I told you, so the nowadays the IC or VLSI, the word has become a household acronym. So majorly in the design of IC, there are majorly 2 flows. One is ASIC design, and the second one is FPGA design. Okay, so ASIC means application specific integrated circuit. So FPGA means field programmable gate array design. So we have to have the idea about these designs. Okay, so ASIC means application specific integrated circuit design, and whereas FPGA means field programmable gate array design. Okay, so what is the basic difference between this ASIC design and FPGA design means? So ASIC means it is only intended for that specific application. Okay, it is only one time programmable IC. Okay, FPGA is reconfigurable. It can use it for number of applications. For example, whatever the things we have seen in our labs, these are called the ASICs. So that is, they are only intended for that specific applications. So for example, if we are taking a NAND gate IC, so NAND gate IC, what it does? So it does the operation of NAND. So for example, if you take a AND IC, so this IC will do only the operation of an AND gate. Okay, these are the ASICs. But FPGA means it is an IC which consists of some cells where the data can be programmed onto that LUTs, and we can use that IC for that specific application. After that, we can erase that program and again we can use that. Okay, for example, I have taken a FPGA IC. So what I can do is that I can program that FPGA IC for an AND gate. So I can use that IC wherever I require the AND operation. So after that, I can reprogram it, and again I can use that IC for programming or use. So now let us see the design flows. So these are very, very important design flows. The first one is, these design flows are different, will be little bit different for analog as well as digital ICs. First, let us see the design flow for digital ICs. Okay, so first one is design entry. So design entry, before the design entry, so we have to have the specifications for any IC, that may be for any designing. We have to have the system specifications first. In the specifications, so these are normally referred to as specs. So first, what we have to know is that in the specs, we have to take a piece of paper and we have to write, so what is the objective we have to achieve, and what is the softwares we are having. So what is the time duration we have having. So how many employees we require. So after that, what are the softwares available with us. So what is the money we can expand, we can keep on the project. That's all this we have to write in a file. So based on this, so we have to go for the implementation of your ICs. So in the ASIC design flow, so after the design entry, the first one is design entry. So design entry means giving the input for your design. So giving the input for your design means, for example, if it is a digital circuit means, so I can use the large programming, VHDL or Verilog programming. For example, if it is analog circuit means, simply I can draw the schematic of that circuit. For example, I have to draw the IC555 timer. So IC555, or for example, I have to go for the amplifier. So amplifier is a operational amplifier. Operational amplifier is a what you can say. So it is analog circuit. So I cannot write the code for the analog circuit. So therefore, what I can do is that I have to draw the schematic circuit of the analog circuits. So for the digital circuits, so there is no need to draw the circuit. So directly you can write the Verilog or VHDL programs. So VHDL stands for Very High Speed Integrated Circuit Hardware Description Language, and Verilog is Verification HDL. So these two are the languages that are exceptional for defining an digital electronic circuits. So once the digital entry is done, so that means for the digital circuits, for example, for the digital circuit, I am taking it as a AND gate. So for the not an AND gate, adder. So for the added circuit, since it is a digital adder, so I have to write the VHDL or Verilog program depending upon our expertise. And for a operational amplifier, so I can draw the schematic of that circuit. So once the schematic of the circuit is drafted, the next one will be the, so first let us see the digital part. Okay, so for the digital part, the next one will be the simulation. So simulation means, so giving the inputs and checking the outputs. So giving the inputs and checking the outputs is known as the simulation. So there is a difference between the word simulation and word functional verification. Okay, so simulation means we have to give the inputs and we will get the outputs. Then we can say that your circuit is simulated. Okay, functional verification means give the inputs and we have to get the correct output for the circuit what you have drawn or what you have write the program. So that is called the functional verification. The functional verification means for the given set of inputs, we have to get the correct output. For example, for a AND gate, so if the inputs are 0, 0, the output should be 0. The inputs are 0, 1, output should be 0. If the inputs are 1, 0, the output should be 0. If the inputs are 1, 1, then output should be 1. If these four conditions are satisfying its output, then you can say that the circuit, the AND gate circuit is functionally verified. For example, if you are giving the input as 0, 1, instead of getting the input 0, if you are getting the 1, you can say that it is not functionally verified. Why? Because I am getting the output wrong, but it is simulated. Simulated means we are getting the output, but it may be correct or it may not be correct. Okay, so the next one is for the digital circuits. The next step in the designing of digital circuits is logic synthesis. Okay, so logic synthesis means here we have written the program for VHDL or Verilog. So VHDL or Verilog is a program. So VHDL language is based on the Pascal language. Okay, so Verilog language is based on the C language. The syntax of Verilog is based on the C. The syntax of VHDL is based on the Pascal. Okay, so the again, if you see here, if you want to use the IC which you are defining here, if you want to use the IC for the commercial purposes, okay, commercial purposes, the people will write the program in the Verilog. Okay, for example, the IC which you are designing, if you want to use for the defense applications, the military and defense applications, the people will write the code in the VHDL. Why? Because the VHDL is more encrypted. Even if it is hacked, the people, the hackers cannot understand the VHDL properly. That the syntaxes are little different. Okay. Again, I can say that, so depending upon the application where the IC is used, so we can use either VHDL or Verilog programming. So Verilog programming is used if the IC is used in the commercial applications. So VHDL programming is done for the ICs where we are using the ICs in the defense purpose. So logic synthesis. Okay. So logic synthesis means, so these two programming languages, VHDL and Verilog, these are written normally in our English, but the computer doesn't understand the English which you have written. So we have to convert the higher level language into the system understandable language. So this is known as logic synthesis. Okay, so conversion of HDL programming into a netlist, that is the system understandable language. It is known as the logic synthesis. So after logic synthesis, the next one is system partitioning. So system partitioning means if the circuit is very, very big, okay, if the circuit is very, very big means a single designer cannot design the whole circuit. So what we'll do is that the circuit will be equally divided into many parts and they will be assigned to many teams. So this is known as the system partitioning. So after the system partitioning, the next thing is floor planning, placement, and routing. Okay. So I will tell you an analogy for this. For example, first I will tell you the definitions. Floor planning means arranging the logic blocks in the circuit. That is the high level logic In a given circuit, high-level blocks are called logic blocks. Arranging of that logic blocks is called as floor planning. Placement means the logic gates or logic cells inside the logic blocks. The placing of logic cells or logic cells or logic gates inside the logic blocks are called as placements. Routing means giving the internal connections. Okay, so a small analogy for this: if you take your college as an IC, okay, if you take your college as an IC, there will be different blocks. So EC block, EEE block, mechanical block, civil block. So these are known as logic blocks. These are the main blocks. The placing of these branch blocks are known as floor planning. Okay, so and again, for example, if you take EEE blocks, in the EEE block you have the EEE labs. Okay, you have the EEE classes. Okay, these are called as logic cells. The placing of classrooms and laboratories in the EEE branch. So these are called as known as placement. So next, routing means giving the connections between all these different branches and different classes. These are known as routing. So it is about the digital IC designing. So coming to the analog IC. So in the analog IC, the design entry is done by using the schematic. For operational amplifier, we cannot write the program. So directly we can draw the schematic, and that schematic, after drawing the schematic, we have to check the functionality of that schematic circuit. The functionality of that schematic circuit is done by applying the input, and we have to verify the output. Once the program is functionally verified, the next one is that in case of analog, so we have to design a layout. So that is the geometrical representation of your circuit. Once the layout is done here, then we have to go for the functional verification. After that, we can generate the GDS2. So it is about the analog design. Okay, so if you are going for the analog design, the designing of analog circuitry is very difficult. Okay, but in the digital designing, the tools will directly give the required outputs. But in case of analog designing, so we have to design by using some formulas. So what should be the power supply? So what should be the length of the transistor? What should be the width of the transistors? All these, there are different formulas. When you are going to design an analog circuit, there are different formulas. So like EKV model, okay, so the PTM model. So different formulas are, different methods are there. By using these methods, so we have to define a analog circuit. But digital, it is different. Okay, for example, if I want to design an AND gate, means in AND gate in 45 nanometer technology. Okay, so the length and width of transistor for AND gate will be 18 nanometers, same as your technology. But in analog, you have to define what should be the length and what should be the width of the transistors. So the designing is very, very important. So we will see in the later classes. So next one is FPGA design flow. So the FPGA design flow means field programmable gate array. So this sort of designing is only done for the digital part. So you cannot implement analog circuits by using the FPGA. So we can use only the digital circuits in the FPGA designing. The first one is design entry. The same thing, in the design entry, you will write the HDL programming, that is the Verilog programming or VHDL programming. So after writing the Verilog or VHDL programming, so then what we have to do is that we have to go for the behavioral simulation. So behavioral simulation means giving the inputs and checking the outputs, whether we are getting the correct or not. Once we are getting the required outputs, so next we have to go for the synthesis, which I have already told you. Synthesis means converting the higher level HDL language into the system understandable language. So normally, technically, it is defined as conversion of HDL program into the netlist. Okay. So once it is converted into the netlist, so we have to implement this netlist in the target FPGA board. That is the target FPGA IC. Okay, so the target FPGA IC by using the methods of translate, mapping, and routing. So after this, the FPGA is programmed, and we can see the hardware implementation of your output. So normally what happens is that the designing of ASIC, that is the application specific integrated circuit, is very, very high. Okay, normally in our labs, whatever the things we are using, amplifier ICs or op amp ICs, any ICs, so these are some 10 to 12 rupees. Okay, but if this is available at rupees 10 to 12, whenever these ICs are manufactured in the huge numbers. Okay, we are getting the operational amplifier IC from 8 to 12 rupees. Why? Because at the same time, nearly some trillions of operational amplifier ICs are manufactured. Suppose if you want to manufacture a single operational amplifier means, so you have to keep some crores of rupees. Okay, some crores and crores of rupees for manufacturing a single IC. So as we are implementing many number of, if you want to implement a single IC, or if you want to implement a billion ICs, the designing cost is same. Okay, so but the manufacturing cost will reduced. Okay, so if you are manufacturing more number of ICs means, so we are getting the more profit on more ICs. That's why the IC rate will be reduced if you are manufacturing at bulk. If you are manufacturing at lower number means, the cost of IC will be more. So in order to, for example, I have designed an IC. So for example, I have designed a adder IC. So after manufacturing that adder IC, I am not getting the intended output. Then what happens? The total design process, the design time cycle, the cost which I have kept, everything is waste. Okay, so huge loss. So in order to avoid that, all the digital circuits are first implemented in the FPGA design flow. So an FPGA is a IC where there will be a configurable logic blocks. So these are the, you can say, a memory. Okay, so these are the memory. So in this memory, we will implement the program, and we will check the functionality of your design in the hardware. Once it is correct in the FPGA, then we are going for the real-time IC preparation for the digital circuits. So the next one is coming to the EDA. So EDA tools, that is the EDA is the category of tools for designing and services which enables engineers to create electronic products. Okay, so EDA design automation. EDA tools means EDA design automation tools. So these are the softwares that enables the engineers to create electronic products. So whatever the product which is related to electronics, the software related to that is known as EDA tools. Okay, so normally under this EDA tools, you have the mainly three terms: CAD, CAM, and CAE. So where CAD is called as computer aided design, so CAM is computer aided manufacturing, and CAE is computer aided engineering. So in this EDA, these are the subheadings we can say. So CAD means, so that is the design, any type of design activities which make use of computer in order to develop, analyze, or modify an engineering design. So that means, so in order to develop or analyze or modify a engineering design, so that engineering design may be to any branch. Okay, any branch of engineering, the software used for this type, it is called as computer aided design software. Okay, examples of this is schematic entry tools, PCB layout tools, routing and component management. So schematic entry tools means the circuits in which you can draw the schematics of the circuits. Okay, for example, the multisim, the Tanner, the Mentor, Cadence, in which this you can draw the schematic of the given circuit, you can simulate that circuit and you can check whether the drafted schematic is working perfectly or not. So PCB layout means printed circuit board layout. So the designing of your PCB layout for a particular circuit comes under the computer aided design. So routing means so giving the connections between different electronic components. The software used for that is also known as computer aided design tool. The next one is computer aided manufacturing. So is used to control machinery tools for manufacturing process. So in order to control the required machinery tools for manufacturing process, the tools under this are known as computer aided manufacturing. So the tools which will prepare the PCB boards and integrated circuit design data for manufacturing. So these are the hardware tools, we can say that. So examples of this is PCB and integrated circuit design tools. So these CAD tools are used at the time of designing, and CAM tools are used at the time of manufacturing. And next one is computer aided design. So the computer aided design, the software, the computer software, so which helps in doing our engineering works is called as computer aided engineering tool. Okay, so whatever the software which makes our work easy in our engineering, so this is known as the computer aided engineering tool. So there are many tools like verification tools, that is the system level design means designing tools, and next one is verification tool, that is the functional verification tools. Okay, simulation tools, analysis tools, there are a number of tools here. And next one is how we have to choose a EDA tool. So in the market there are a number of EDA tools. So for example, in the IC industry, normally there are main important design tools are Cadence, Mental Graphics, Synopsys, and the next one is Tanner EDA, Xilinx, Ultra. So these are the different EDA tools. Now we have to select what type of tool for what type of work. So choosing an EDA tool is very important. The first one is type of business. Okay, so whether the business is global or national or locally located designs, and the next one is how many number of people are used, what is the purpose of the tool. Like this, based on this type of design, we have to select the tool. Why? Because the cost of the tools, EDA tools, will not be low. For example, Cadence is the software for the industrial purpose. For the research, for the industry purpose, the cost of Cadence tool for one user will be approximately some 15 lakhs for 1 year for one user. Okay, you can imagine how the cost of this Cadence tool will vary for some 20 to 30 members. Okay, for academics, this comes under at a lower price, but for industry, this is very, very high. So for example, if you want to go for a local business, and if you are going for buying or purchasing the Cadence, means a huge amount will be wasted. So at that time, we can go for the lower end tools. So like you can go for Tanner, you can go for Tanner, you can go for Mentor, like this. And next one is type of network capability. So in the type of network capability means your current computer network. So actually now what happens is that all these EDA tools will be comes with the different licenses. So for example, if you are purchasing a 30 user license means, so the license will not come differently for different systems. So there will be a server system. So for that server system, MAC ID will be taken. The MAC ID of the system will not be same for all the systems. So in some 1000 to 2000 systems, the same MAC ID will be repeated. The MAC ID of a system will not be same for all the systems. A system's MAC ID will be taken. That is, the physical address of a system is taken. So based on the physical address of the system, the license will be generated. The remaining clients has to be connected to this server, okay, by using either LAN or by using the cloud. So depending upon the network capability also we have to take. For example, some companies will support only the LAN connection, that is the LAN based licenses. Some companies will support the cloud based licenses also. So now depending upon that we have to choose the EDA tool. And next one is security requirements, okay. So depending upon the firewall restrictions and the geographical locations and login restrictions, so we have to select the tools. And next one is types of computers, okay. So for example, if you are purchasing a Cadence tool, so for the Cadence, all these in VLSI industry tool will not work for Windows. So they will be working only for the Linux operating systems. So we have to make sure again that. So what type in the Linux operating systems also, for example, so they will not work for the systems that is with the lower end operating system. For example, I am using the Red Hat Linux. So nowadays the Cadence version will work only for the Red Hat Linux or Solaris 9 version or 10 version. If we implement these same software in the Linux version 5 or Red Hat Linux version 5 or Solaris 5 Linux, so the software will not be installed. That we have to check. And the next one is training. So we have to, it is very, very important thing. So we have to make sure that the engineers who have trained in that particular software are available with us or not. Because if you have 10 members in your company, so among that 8 members have trained with Cadence tools and 2 have trained with Synopsys tools. Now if you purchase the Mentor Graphics tool means, so no one have worked for the, have undergone the training of Mentor Graphics tools. So that means again we have to give the training. That is the overhead cost also increases. So we have to make sure whenever we are purchasing a EDA tool, so we have to know our expertise in that. And next one is compatibility. So compatibility means, so for example, in our company we have Cadence. So in other company they have Synopsys tool. So we have to make sure that whatever the output generated, so in our company, when you send that output to other company, so the output file has to be open at that place. If it is not opening at that place, again it will be a problem. The other company might have the same software or might not have the same software. So we have to make sure that whatever the software we are purchasing, so it should be open in all the other platforms. And the next one is cost. The most important one is cost here. So depending upon the licensing options, training and support, so the cost effective tool should be purchased. And next one is transition. So normally in whenever we are purchasing your EDA tools, that is the IC industry tools, mainly 2 types of licenses will be there. So one is the perpetual license and the second one is the term-based license. The term-based license means it is a 1-year license or a 3 years license. So after 1 year or 3 years, the license will be expired and software will not run. If it is a perpetual license means, so the software will work for 90 years, 90 or 99 years, but you will not get the updates for the perpetual license. The updates in the software will be only for 1 year. So after 1 year, though the license is existed for that software, in order to get the updates, again we have to pay the maintenance fees to the company. So that transition also we have to check. And you can see here the schematic diagram. So schematic diagram means, so it is a simplified graphical representation of electrical circuit which symbolizes devices such as transistors, resistors and capacitors. So where the schematic diagram means, so depending upon the library of the software what you are using, so you can select the different components present and you can place that different components on the workspace provided in the software and you can connect it. So that is the schematic diagram. And Next one, with the technology advancement, the development of specialized computer languages and the complexity of electronic circuits, the use of EDA is more common than traditional schematics, which are getting less practical. So that means here, due to the advancement in the technology, so nowadays people are mostly using the specialized computer languages. So I have told you, for the even though for the analog circuits, I have told you, we should definitely draw the schematic of the circuit. That means for an operational amplifier, you have to draw the schematics. Why means we cannot write the programming language for that. Even though nowadays we are getting the analog hardware description languages also. So they are known as the Verilog AMS, VHDL AMS, Verilog A. So these are the analog part of languages. So these are not widely used. So whenever we are going for the designing of analog circuits, so we are going for the SPICE coding. So normally we use the SPICE coding, and moreover, let me tell you how the industry will be. Some 6 to 7 years back, not 6 to 10, mostly 10 years back, whenever the VLSI industry was into force, okay, most of the people doesn't know the VHDL programming or Verilog programming. At that time, the people are mainly on the software. So they are going for the C language, or they are going for the Java, like that. Most of the people doesn't know how to write the syntaxes for your VHDL or Verilog language. So what the companies have thought that to invest the amount for training the engineers, the companies have developed a software such that if you write the C code, that C code or C++ code will be converted into the Verilog or VHDL hardware description language code. So how you can see how the companies are doing. So in order to train the persons to write the VHDL or Verilog code, so they are developing a software. So in order to convert the C or C++ code into the hardware description languages, and moreover, there are some softwares. I think all of you know Truth Table. Okay, so there are some softwares in the Mentor Graphics. Okay, HDL Designer software is there. So in that HDL Designer, if you write the truth table of a given circuit, so if you write the truth table, automatically that truth table will be converted into a hardware description language. So there is no need of having engineer to write the code. So truth table means everyone can draw it. So after drawing that truth table, and if you just convert it, click on button the convert, automatically programming will be done. So due to these sophisticated EDA tools, what is happening is that the most of the people are not using the schematic diagram nowadays. So the next one is printed circuit board layout. So the printed circuit board consists of electrical connections for different electronic components. So using the conductive tracks and pads. Okay. So next one is that. So you can see here down, this is the PCB designing. So it is having the two layers here, bottom layer and upper layer. So in between the two layers, there will be the vias. The vias means which connects the two layers. So the next one is design rules and design rule check. As I told you, electrical design rules. So whenever you have drawn the schematic in any of the circuit and you are going for the electrical rule check, that is ERC. So ERC or electrical design rule, both are same. So in the electrical design rules, after drawing the circuit, nothing but the checking of the checking of the syntax like that you can say. So in the electrical design rule, so what it does is that, so it will check whether the electrical path between the components is perfectly connected or not. Okay, if it is not perfectly connected, it will show us the error. So it is the one type of the electrical design rule, and next one is physical rule. So physical rule means, so in the PCB designing, the mechanical limitations. That means whenever we are going for the PCB designing, we have to make sure that, so what is the height requirement, so what is the amount of layers in the PCB designing, everything we have to see it. So this comes under the physical rules. And next one is rules of layout versus schematic. As I told you, the layout and the schematic netlists are compared whether the functionality of the schematic and layout are same or not. So these design rules are designed with respect to the three institutes, that is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and next one is Joint Electronic Device Engineering Council, and next one is Institute for Printed Circuits. Okay, so these three organizations will define the design rules and design rule checks for the different software. So based on this, the EDA tools will take their software designing. And next one is product life cycle management, PLM. So once the designing is done, so after the designing is done, the first one, how the product is developed by using the EDA tools. The first one is requirements analysis and planning. Okay, so whatever the product is required, that product market is analyzed, and with the proper planning and with the concept of the design, a prototype is manufactured, and the number of products are manufactured in the bulk, and they are sold with the given customer support. And after, once the product lifetime is expired, again they are disposed, recycled, and again they are once more they are gone for the designing with the new updates. So it is the PLM. So and next one is the test scenarios for the EDA tool. Okay, you can see here, first what you do, reference design. So ARCAD is one of the schematic tool. So ARCAD is developed by Cadence, and in our webinar, so from tomorrow we will see the multi-sim. So this multi-sim is developed by the National Instruments company. So once the circuit is done, okay, once the circuit is done, after that this circuit will be converted into the designing of PCB by using the PADS. So PADS is a software from the Mentor Graphics company. So you can use different softwares here. Suppose if you can use ARCAD or Multisim. So instead of PADS, we can use the Altiboard here. So different softwares are there. So the next one is for the generation of, again, PCB to schematic, we have to use the Altium softwares. So these are all the softwares, EDA softwares, that is the EDA tools. So everything. So even in the hardware point of view, whatever the hardware you are using, that is developed by using only the EDA software tools. So nothing we are doing it in terms of the hardware. So if you want to check, if you want to test also, nowadays if you want to test also, directly there are some equipment, you can keep that IC and you can check whether the IC is working properly or not. So there are everything, test equipments are there, everything is there. So no need to worry about the things if you want to measure in terms of hardware. The next one is major EDA tools, Mentor Graphics, Cadence, Synopsys. These are the three companies that are highly used in the VLSI industry. And next one is NI Multisim is the circuit designing tool. NI Multisim is National Instruments Multisim software. ARCAD is circuit design, analog circuit designing software from Cadence. And LabVIEW is, so this is a graphical representation circuit software. So we can use it for any application field. And next one is Tanner EDA. So it is used in the VLSI industry. So moreover, Tanner EDA tool is mainly used in the academics. So it is not preferred mostly in the industries. So it is preferred in the academics. So the next one is NI board. So NI board is the software used to design the PCB circuits, and PCB pads is from the Mentor Graphics company. So Xilinx and Altera are the different softwares only for the simulation purpose, simulation of HDL language. Okay, so whenever let me tell you, there may be a few persons who may go into the VLSI industry. Let me tell you, in the FPGA flow, design entry, simulation, up to synthesis, you can use any EDA tool software. That is, you can use the software from Cadence, or you can use the software from Xilinx. Any VLSI related software can be used up to the point of synthesis, but for the implementation of your program onto the FPGA board, we have to use the vendor dependent software. For example, I am using the Xilinx company FPGA board means, so then I have to definitely use the software related to Xilinx company. For example, if I am using the FPGA board related to Ultra means, up to synthesis part, I can use any software. For the implementation part, I have to definitely use the software related to the Ultra company. So these are the major EDA tools. So these are just an insights into the EDA tools. This is we cannot learn about these EDA tools in an hour or two. It is a very like a ocean. So what you can say is that, so these are the insights. So thank you. This is the basic about the EDA tools. So if there are any queries, means you can ask me. Hello? 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 So voice is not audible.